All right, so I think it's time to discuss a topic that honestly I never thought we'd be discussing. But DeMar DeRozan has been making some noise for MVP. And I want to go first on addressing this because I really never thought that there would be any type of case for DeMar being an MVP. But I've read things and here's his case. Not to say I'm making this case, but here's his case. Chicago right now going into the All-Star break is first in the East. They're fourth in the league behind Memphis, Phoenix, and Golden State. DeMar is averaging the highest points per game of his career, the second highest field goal percentage of his career at 51.7%, the highest three-point percentage of his career, which has been a huge knock on him. He's shooting 34.3% this year on 1.8 attempts per game, with an effective field goal percentage of 53.3%. His true shooting percentage is at 60.1, again, one of the highest of his career, and usually above 60% is considered elite for the NBA. He has a very good box plus minus of 5.8 plus 5.8. Great value over replacement player and a whole bunch. Basically all his advanced stats look really good. However, there is no way DeMar DeRozan wins an MVP. Not this year, not ever. DeMar DeRozan does not strike any type of fear in his opponents. I think we all know DeMar DeRozan is probably not even a top 15 player in the league, if we can make that argument. And he's got his running mate in Zach LaVine, who's doing nearly as much as he is. So I would say they're sharing the responsibility, and both of them should be given credit. I don't think Zach LaVine is being given nearly enough credit on top of what Vucevic has been doing the last few weeks. I know you're probably going to talk about that, but yeah, I don't know. I don't see DeMar's case. I think no one's really afraid of DeMar come playoff time. I think his playoff history, I know it shouldn't be factored into the MVP award, but his playoff history is definitely going to be held against him with the voters. Everybody knows his history in choking with the Raptors against LeBron, and he's just I don't see it. I don't see a case for him. I know everybody wants to, but I really don't think there's a case to be made.
Interesting. Yeah, so just basically with DeMar, I don't think he will win it. With regards to the case being made, I can see how, like, obviously you just pointed out all the metrics, how it works in his favor. But like you mentioned, they are fourth overall in teams, including all the Western Conference ones. And what he really doesn't have going for him, I guess you could say, is that Zach LaVine should take some credit. Vucevic is playing at an elite level the last couple of weeks as well. But I think some of the narrative that's really filled in for him is that they've all, I guess, suffered injuries on the Bulls, and he's sort of been the common piece throughout. Like even like items like Caruso was hurt, not a big deal, but people, I guess, they're considering him a very good defender, and he made a real big difference on that Bulls team. But for MVP, as much as we don't factor in the playoff woes that he's had in Toronto, and obviously like
You have to
we were
factor that
pretty
in.
we were pretty close into that. We saw it firsthand happen. It's not the worst scenario that LeBron is the only guy in the East who you couldn't get past because nobody could have got past LeBron in the East. You know what I mean? It's sort of like even like James Harden. Like sure, like Houston was a good team, but they kept losing to the Warriors. So in a sense, like it's not like they did lose to the Spurs once, but they were losing to like the main dog in the West. It's the same way Toronto was losing to the main dog in the East, even though like that series, some of the series weren't even close that they were losing to. But I do think that there is a case to put him in the top five. I think it was a little harsh saying he's not a
Yep,
top 15 player.
I agree with that.
Now, maybe
I agree with
overall,
top five.
yeah, but
I agree with
maybe
top five.
overall he's not a top 15 player to some people. But the way, if we're just using this season as a reference, he's definitely playing at a better than a top 15 player in the NBA this year. And that
No,
could
no, he's
solely
not.
be due to change of scenery. Well, I mean, like going from the Spurs to the Bulls, definitely a big change with the way they play as well. And plus, the Chicago is the third largest market in the states, so he's like, there's definitely more traction, more eyes on him there. And once you start comparing him, like he's breaking like some of Wilt's records, or he's matching some of Jordan's records as well on the Bulls. Like it's starting to take some traction in the media, but I think more so in the MVP race, I probably put him at fourth on my ladder as of today.
All right, so you mentioned the ladder. Let's talk about this
Yeah,
ladder. I got five. I got my top five for the MVP, and I'll start. I have Demar at fifth. I'll give him some votes here because, like you said, he is having a career season. I think that deserves some votes, but I can't put him higher than fifth. Like those votes, getting fifth place votes, like it's one of those things that means something, but it doesn't really mean something. Like, yeah, he should be in consideration. He should be given some type of votes for the season he's having, but everybody knows fifth place doesn't really mean anything. Now
no, I agree with that.
above Demar. I got at fourth place on my ladder. I got John Morant. Memphis is third in the West. Nobody expected Memphis to be this good. They were a playing team last year. Ja is averaging 27, 7, and 6 on good efficiency. And John Morant is must see TV. I don't think I've ever tuned in to a Memphis game or like looked forward to tuning into a Memphis game before this year. Now I actively seek out Memphis games.
Not even those Zach Randolph, Marc Gasol years.
Never. Those guys were that was a grit and grind era, and they were just boring. But Ja is exciting to watch. There's like at least 3 or 4 highlights every time he plays, and it's not just. I'm gonna go on record and say it. John Morant is like the pace that he's playing with reminds me of Chris Paul type IQ. Now he's not Chris Paul level IQ. He's Chris Paul type IQ. So he's getting there. Like I think Draymond Green said it on one of the podcasts that he was an interviewee for, where he said some of the highest IQ guys in the league were LeBron, Chris Paul, and he had John Morant on that list. And I see it. When I watch this kid play, the guy plays. Yes, he's wildly athletic. It's very seldom that he needs to use his max level athleticism to beat people. He'll come off a screen, get a defender on his hip, play with pace. He's just sort of like he thinks the game very well for someone who's so young. But we'll talk more on Jaw later.
So I agree with you on that front. Like I have him ranked higher than DeMar as well on my ladder at 3. And that's solely because of what else does Memphis actually have? Like when you consider value to the team, and how would the Bulls be faring without DeMar DeRozan with the current roster they have constructed versus how would Memphis be in the
Yes,
West?
agreed.
And I think
Agreed.
that that's a big, key definer in value. And when you mentioned the
100%.
really high IQ that he plays with, and like how he doesn't necessarily have to use his athleticism, I think it's also like a very key skill of his that he can play at his own pace or control the pace of the game.
Yeah, it's impressive
Like
for a young
he
guy.
effectively dictates it, how it goes.
100%.
Whether they
He
win or
controls the
lose, it's
game.
played on his terms.
It's played on his terms. Agreed. So third on my list, I have Jokic. Jokic is just an offensive monster. He's averaging 26, 14, and 8 on probably league leading efficiency. I know it's elite. He's the league leader in win shares, box plus minus, VORP, and pretty much all the advanced stats metrics. He's, if not at the top, pretty much in the top 5. So he's
So
offensively
this is where we
unquestioned.
differ. I
Okay.
have him at 5th, and
You have
the only
Jokic.
thing
You have
that's
Jokic
really
under Jaw.
I do, yeah. Well, Jaw's been more successful with what he has on his roster. And I think
No,
Denver might
no,
have
no
more.
way, no way,
No.
dude. Denver's playing with Aaron Gordon, Will Barton, Facundo Campazzo, Austin Rivers,
Monte Morris.
Monte Morris as their key roster pieces around Jokic. That team does not even sniff the play-in game without Jokic, and Jokic has them. What is it? I think, yeah, 3 games back of Utah in fourth, and they're the 6th seed right now. They could very well be in fourth place by the end of the year. And if they're in fourth, I think Jokic moves up my list.
Oh, if they're in 4th, I definitely move him up. But right now, as of today, I can't, like, his stats are elite, just the team success hasn't been there.
Yeah, I just
And like
think he's
I know you
carrying.
mentioned they're not a playoff team without him,
They're not
but
even a
if you look at
play-in team
if
without
you
him.
look at the play, oh, I don't know about that. Look at the play in the West. Like it's pretty bottom of the barrel.
Who's ninth and 10th right now? I don't even know.
Um, Let me just double check. But last time I recall, it was Portland,
Ooh,
and
Portland's in
San
10th.
Antonio Spurs are in 11th. They're chasing.
Yeah, Portland's like
Like
Portland is
you know what I
still
mean?
a
They'd
better.
be a
If you
play-in
take
team
Jokic
without
off Denver,
Jokic.
Portland's still a better team. If you take Jokic off Denver, Portland is still a better team than Denver. That's how bad Denver is. They're missing their top 2 guys outside of Jokic and Jamal
Would you
Murray and Michael
consider
Porter
Denver worse than the Spurs without Jokic?
without Jokic. Yes, yes. The Spurs have
Okay, so
Dejounte Murray, who's an
you think
all-star.
he causes more than like a 15 win swing then?
Yes. I think I don't have what his win shares are. I think his win shares for the season, which is pretty much how much value one player adds in winning to your team above a league average player. I think Jokic is leading the league at like 11 win shares this season. The season's halfway, well, not halfway, like 60% over. He's added 11 wins individually. That's the only metric that measures wins
You know what?
individually.
I really like the
He's
guy.
elite. The guy is
It's
elite.
just I don't think he's gonna get voted a win like for MVP this year. And I think there's a little bit of salt last year. As like even like the mainstream media, they're all saying the only reason Jokic really won is because Embiid went down early, LeBron got injured, and it's just like who else do we give the MVP to? So they sort of discredit his last year's MVP, and I think the voters would sure think twice before making him a repeat 2-time MVP.
All I'm saying is if they get to fourth, I don't think they can catch Memphis in third, but if they get to fourth, you have to give Jokic a long, hard look because it's going to be hard to say no to a guy carrying that roster to fourth place in the West. Anyways,
He's got a road to get there. I agree with that.
yeah, second place on my list. The runner-up goes to Joel Embiid. I think
Yep.
Embiid outplayed Giannis last night. Honestly, he played really well. Philly's tied for third in the East. Embiid's been missing a max contract guy on his roster all year in Ben Simmons, who's just eating up cap, and they have no one in his place. So Embiid's carrying his load as well. He's averaging a career high in points and assists this year, pretty much career highs across the board in all advanced stat categories. But I think one caveat that we're not factoring in, I think James Harden could actually hurt his case. James Harden joining the team in the second
That
half of
I
the
agree with
season
that 100%.
ruined his case. I think
So
James
just in
Harden takes away some
perspective,
shots. Yep.
yeah, I have Embiid at 1 right now as of today, and Giannis at 2. But like once James Harden comes in, obviously that number is going to flip.
Yeah, I agree. I think James Harden is it's kind of going to be like what's going on in Phoenix with Chris Paul and Devin Booker. Like I can't give it to one over the other because they're both so important to the team. I think Chris Paul is more important than Devin Booker is, but either way, I can't pick one guy over the other. So for that reason, I have Embiid at two.
The only reason I have him at 1 as of today's date because it's not necessarily like who has the best season. A lot of this is really how the voters will perceive these guys.
Right.
And Giannis already has 2. There's been voter fatigue on there, and the Bucks are. Let's be real. They're quiet. I mean, they're playing well
No, no,
behind
they're
the
not. No, they're
scenes.
not. Okay, I need to get this on record. I need to
Yeah,
make Giannis's case because I think it's ridiculous
someone
that
has to.
Giannis is. Yeah, I think it is an atrocity that Giannis is not getting enough credit for being what I think should be the league MVP.
Yep,
Giannis, Milwaukee right now, as quiet as people are saying they are, is tied for third in the East with Philly. Say they have the same winning percentage as Joel Embiid's team.
So just
Giannis,
to throw in, by quiet I mean media attention wise.
yes, media attention wise, agreed. Giannis is putting up almost identical stats to the two seasons 2018-2019 and 2019-2020 when he won MVP. His stats are almost identical. He's a better jump shooter and Milwaukee's the defending champs. I do not think an MVP, I think the amount of subjective narrative driven bias that's put forth towards an MVP selection is just it's brutal because
It is, yeah.
Giannis gets better every year. We're going to look back at this 15 years from now. We're going to say, okay, Giannis won MVP in 2018, 2019. Then he won MVP in 1920. That's two MVPs. Then Jokic won the year after that. Then Giannis goes back and puts up the exact same numbers. Milwaukee's a top 5 team in the league, top 3 team in the East. I think they're going to finish top 3 in the East for the year. He's doing it with Chris Middleton as the second best player, who, don't get me wrong, is a good second best player. You could argue whether that's Chris Middleton or Drew Holiday. Great supporting cast around him, but neither is an elite top 15, maybe even top 20 guy in the league. I don't know if a lot of people have him. Yes, Chris Middleton's an all-star, but I'm there. You can make a case that there's easily 15 guys you take over Chris Middleton in the NBA. Giannis
See,
is carrying that team.
this is the issue. So I agree with that, and I think he like as a preference, I think I'd like to see him win it. But the biggest thing is it all comes down to voter preference, right? Like even like for
But
all
it
the people
shouldn't.
in
It shouldn't because
Embiid,
that's
it shouldn't. I agree with that. But like if we're thinking on who actually is going to win, I feel like there's going to be a heavy push for Embiid to win. Only because some people thought he probably should have had it last year if he stayed healthy. Like if he gets injured this year, like his case gets derailed, right?
I just think a guy putting up 30 or 29, whatever Giannis is putting up, 11 and 6 with on 56% from the field shooting. There's the team's third in the East. He's a monster. Finals
If you
MVP
want me to
last
be
year.
honest, I think John Moran has a chance of winning it if Memphis finishes as a 2 seed.
I could see that.
Um, I could
I
see
could see.
that.
You know what? I wouldn't be mad about that. I think
I
that's
wouldn't either.
reasonable.
But with Embiid, I think James Harden hurts his case either way.
Either
Um,
way, I think Embiid's
if
gonna be out of
Philly
the running.
starts running the table now, it's like okay, like James Harden addition really helps out. Worst case scenario, Philly gets even worse with James Harden, and there's like more drama and coverage on like how's the fit and stuff like that. That's just gonna hurt Embiid's case even more. You could
Yeah,
put the blame on Harden, but like there's gonna be so much going on in Philadelphia with like they're gonna be under a microscope where they're just gonna be nitpicking, looking to pick apart, I guess, whatever case he might have.
agreed. All I know is the voting has to become less subjective because there's too much bias when it's subjective and more objective. We have advanced stats, we have numbers, we have metrics, we use winning to measure the impact that a player has on that. And then we combine it with the eye test. We can't say because Giannis already has two, he doesn't deserve to win three. What's in the past is in the past. I know I use that against DeRozan, but with Giannis, his numbers, his impact is so off the charts. What he's doing in Milwaukee, in a small market city like Milwaukee with that team,
Well, like
unbelievable.
he showed up in big games. Like I understand they lost to Philadelphia the other day, and he put up a respectable borderline triple double. But even when like I guess the Lakers aren't really a big team, but when Anthony Davis was on his little mini tear, Giannis completely showed him up. Like Anthony Davis isn't anywhere near his level, and then once they actually get to play these big teams, he definitely shows up and he makes a statement impact.
Yeah,
So I'm
Giannis for
kind of
MVP.
excited, looking forward to the playoffs to see, I guess, how the Bucks actually fare against all the change in the East.
Yeah, yeah, Giannis for MVP. Milwaukee is at least an Eastern Conference finalist, if not again the favorite to repeat in the finals. That's just my take for today. But we'll cover this again later down the line once we get a little bit closer to the playoffs and the end of the season.